It took me a long time to understand that I had limiting beliefs, especially when I was doing well. So when I started making $80,000 and $90,000 a year in sales, this is many, many years ago, that's like $270,000 today. In an industry, by the way, where the top producers were 40,000. The limiting beliefs that I had at that time, and then even when I was making $1 million a year, were the ones when I was making money. You know, when you're not making any money, it's clear you got a limiting belief. You know, you're making 30 grand a year and that's all you can make, no matter how good you are, no matter how much you smile, no matter how much service you provide, no matter how early you get there, how late you stay, and you still make 30, you know there's a limiting belief because everything would indicate you should be paid more. When you're making $1 million a year, you start thinking, I don't have any limiting beliefs. So the way to handle that is you need to study people that have created massive amounts. This is exactly what the 10X rule was about. Create massive amounts. In the Millionaire booklet, I talked about earning money, keeping money, and multiplying money. This is what the great salespeople don't do. I know great salespeople that have never figured out how to multiply money. I know salespeople that are so good, I'm like, dude, that guy is probably a better salesperson than me, but he's still broke. He's broke because he made his money, didn't know how to keep it, or he kept it, didn't know how to multiply it. How much you earn is a limiting belief. How you keep it, where you keep it is a limiting belief. If you have money in the bank or equity in your house, or you have a retirement account, you have a limiting belief about money. You're saving for a rainy day. You have equity in your home waiting to pay it off in 30 years. Completely ridiculous. No high performance person needs to worry about paying their house off. You should rent where you live, own stuff that other people pay you for. Okay, and just rent where you live and be mobile. And the third thing is, planning for having cash sit in an account, just sitting dead in an account or in your wall or underneath your bed or in your safe or the vault, wherever it is. Oh, but what about an emergency? If your money's in the bank and the internet goes down, you won't be getting your money out. There's no getting the money. If you got it underneath your bed, what for? Like some of you are storing money in gold. Gold is a limiting money belief. You're like, oh my God, the world's gonna come to an end. Gold will not help you out of the end of the world scenarios. You should make a whole list of all the limiting beliefs that you have around money. Number one. Number two, you should most importantly make a list of limiting actions, not limiting beliefs, because your beliefs are turning into actions. How you save money, how you spend money, how you invest money. Diversification is also a limiting belief. Okay, now I know a lot of people recommend diversification, especially the people on Wall Street that benefit from you diversifying the most. They don't want you all eggs in one basket, but if you study the super wealthy, they took stakes. Once they got super rich, then they're like, okay, I own the railroads, the banks, and all the grocery stores.
Want to be happy? Build a life, not just a business. Hey, it's Carmichael, and this channel was created to help you overcome the #1 challenge that is holding you back, a lack of belief in yourself. You watch these videos because you know you've got more inside you. You've got Michael Jordan level genius at something. So today, let's live your best belief life and learn these 7 rich people habits that you need to try. Enjoy. Habit number 2 is celebrate failure with Chamath Palihapitiya.
So when I meet an entrepreneur and they failed, the thing that I'm trying to figure out is how did they fail? Is it, again, and this is going back to what we talked about earlier, did you just not listen and keep battering your head because you heard something or read something and you just, didn't refuse to pivot? That kind of stubbornness can be good, but it can also be extremely destructive. Did you fail because you got the market wrong, but you built a great product? That's actually not such a bad thing. That happens, right? Happens to the best of us. I mean, I failed more times and then the last thing is, are you comfortable with that failure? So the people that can own it, in my opinion, that's a very special class of person. And part of it is just being around enough people. That's why Silicon Valley is so great, because it celebrates failure as much as it celebrates success. And I think that's awesome. I grew up in Canada. I love Canada. But what's frustrating about being Canadian is we don't celebrate failure.
Right.
And so it's all about mean reversion. It's all about managing the middle. And so if you're an outlier, you feel extremely isolated and you feel stupid when things don't go right, as opposed to trying to learn from it, rinse and repeat, try again.
Right.
So I'm trying to figure out, how did they fail and what did they learn? In general, I think it's a good thing. In general, though, what I would say more importantly than anything else is, Are you humble enough to realize that when things worked, it was you, but it was also a lot of luck? And then are you courageous enough to realize that when it failed, it may not have been as much you, but you've learned enough to now avoid the same mistakes? Those are the two things that you have to figure out. You know, you have to be humble enough to realize like timing is everything. People are everything, right? The team, the conditions, your competitors, so many things came into making something work at that time. It's not so replicable. Similarly, failing, if you failed for the right reasons, that could be great DNA to go again and try it again.
Habit number 3, take on the world with Stephen Bartlett.
The things that invalidated you when you're younger will be the things you seek validation from when you're older. And for me, not being able to have people at my house, not being able to celebrate birthdays and Christmases, they carved this insecurity into me that as I get to 16, 17, 18 years old, I just want to fill. And as you say, like a lot of successful people, if you dig into their stories, you'll find this moment, this trauma, this event that happened in their early years. And of course, it's then the thing that often makes them successful. But the reason they become successful is because they're in some way unusual, right? They might be obsessive about money or power or control. And that often also comes with an unappreciated downside, which means they might find it really hard to form relationships, which I did. And they might be a little bit too selfish. They might be, they might chase after material things thinking it's happiness, get there, it moves away like a mirage, and they're left with a lack of fulfillment. To answer your question about what the things were in me that made me move differently, one of them was, by the age of 10 years old, my parents were never in the house. And when I say never, I mean like I would wake up, they weren't there. And when I went to bed, they weren't there. So at 10 years old, I have to fend for myself. And you think about the pressures going on in my life at that age. I'm a kid who is feeling like really inadequate and insecure because I have nothing and my parents aren't there. So I'm looking around thinking, how can I fill this void? So I'm thinking, I'm going to do a deal with the local vending machine company to stock our school with vending machines. And we're going to get 20% of the revenue. And I'm going to take a little bit of the cut. And I'm going to organize all of the events in my school. And this was my way of I had independence and I had an insecurity. And when the two came together, I became this young kid who just had no choice but to take on the world on his own.
Also, to make sure you're actually taking action after watching this video, I've designed a special free worksheet just for this video. The worksheet will highlight all of the lessons learned in this video, as well as pull out our 3 favorite learnings and quotes that will inspire you to actually do something. The worksheet will also give you space to write down what your key takeaways are and your specific plan of action to make sure you're getting results. If you want the worksheet designed specifically for this video, absolutely for free, there's a link in the description below. Go click on it and start building the momentum in your life and your business. I'll see you there. Habit number 4, know your numbers with Tillman Fertitta.
This is the problem with college, and is that they teach you the theoretical side of everything for the person that's working for you, but it doesn't teach you to be the CEO, the practical side, and the young entrepreneur, whether you're trying to go up the corporate ladder or you are doing it your own. And it's just the simple things and these are some of my great Tillmanisms from the book, and why HarperCollins came to me and asked me to write this book was, know your numbers, okay? You've got to know your numbers. There are no spare customers. We're all in a consumer business. People watching this podcast for you or me serving casino customers, restaurant customers, hotel customers. There are no spare customers. We're all after the same consumer. To the 95-5 rule, that 95% of everything is right. So look for the 5% that's wrong.
Habit number 5, choose who you associate with Ed Mylett.
The most powerful way and the easiest way to change your thermostat setting is by adding people to your circle, very close proximity, that live at a higher temperature in that area than you do. For example, in your faith, let's just say, you're a 75-degreer in your faith. You've already seen this. You can't possibly begin to regularly associate with good, godly people who pray regularly, who try to live righteously, and they're at 110, 120 degrees of faith in their life, and not have that proximity heat you up. Now, you won't get to where they are. You'll get to somewhere between where you are at 75 degrees and they are at 110. Over time, you become a 100-degreer. and you alter the thermostat setting through association. Same in business. If you and I were to hang around each other every single day, and let's say you were a 75 degreeer in business, hypothetically, and I don't know that about you, but let's just say you were, and I was a 150 degreeer, and we hung around each other all the time. Don't you think through that association, especially if you had 2 or 3 or 4 people like me in your life, that just over time, you don't even feel it. You're at 80, you're at 85, you're at 90, you're at 95, and that's where you are. We understand the power of this with our children. Because we know at school, the teachers have influence over them, they're mentors, but the people that really have influence over our children are their friends because they're around them all the time. And so we know it sets their temperature. This is true in fitness. If you're a 75 degree of fitness and every meal, every day at the gym, all your associations, hypothetically speaking, were with someone who was shredded and fit the way you wanted to look at 150 degrees, you know over time you get heated up. And so you can't be with someone every day, you can't be with them all the time, but the key is to get more proximity in the areas that matter with people whose thermostat setting is higher than yours. I am a product. You are listening to me right now because I've been so obsessed with this concept of adding new associations to my life that live in the areas that I want to improve in at higher temperatures than me. It's my obsession to this day. I'll give you a secret. One of the reasons I even do my show is I know that I'm influencing many of these guests in the areas that matter most to them through our proximity, and in some cases they do it for me. And so I'm obsessed with the power of association, but I don't just associate. See, all personal development says, yeah, you're the 5 people you hang around. Kinda. You really are the 5 to 10 people you hang around if you're conscious all the time of studying them, of observing them, of asking questions, of the fact that you should be altering your thermostat setting. That's when it really moves. It's not just hanging around. It's consciously and intentionally spending time with people where you allow it to impact you, where you study them, where you really observe them, where you're open to their influence. There has to be a level of trust before you can do that, where you surrender yourself to them. But it's not just being around them. It's intentionally being around people that alters that thermostat setting. So power of association is the main way to do it.
Habit number 6, feed your mind with positivity with Tony Robbins.
Fundamentally, the most basic thing you got to do, especially at a time like COVID, is you got to every day have a couple of simple practices. One of those is every day you got to feed your mind. And when I say feed your mind, I mean consciously seek out something that's going to give you new insight, new inspiration, new way of looking at things. Because otherwise, today the news follows you, right? It's in your pocket. And the news people are good people, but they're doing their job. What's their job? Make as much profit as possible. How do you get the most profit? Get the most people to watch. How do you get the most people to watch? Fear. If it bleeds, it leads is the phrase they use in journalism, right? And we've seen so much fear built up now that most people have lost their faith. And you can't lose it, fortunately. It's just a muscle that needs to be regained. But you have to fill your mind. You have to pursue it. Great ideas are not going to interrupt you. They have to be pursued. And the good news is today, if you get away from just the traditional news, you can go to podcasts like Boss Babes. You can go to different locations. You can get another perspective, and you can feed your mind. But if you don't feed your mind, my original teacher was a guy named Jim Rohn. And he used to say, Tony, I got a question for you. He said, what if your worst enemy puts sugar in your coffee? What's going to happen to you when you drink that coffee? Is it you're going to have sweet coffee? He said, what if your family member, your friend, your love, by accident drops 1 drop of strychnine? What's going to happen when you drink that coffee? He said, you're going to be dead. And he goes, that's right. Life is sugar and strychnine, so watch your coffee. Like every day, you got to stand guard at the door of your mind, especially at times like this when there's so much fear.
And habit number 7, the last one before some very special bonus clips, is love your work with Tom Bilyeu.
My average week is probably 90 hours, 85 to 90 hours is my average. I routinely pop over 100 if something really has to get done. The key is to structure your life in such a way that the work is joyful. So the reason that when my wife and I exited our last company, we never needed to work again, ever. I mean, just never had to think about money again. And we thought, okay, what we want to do though is really do something that gives us meaning and significance. So let's build something. If we're going to work when we don't have to, let's make sure that what we build is something that fills us in ways that we can't explain. And for me, storytelling has always been just a calling. I love it so much. And I cannot tell you how much I love writing. So Jeff Bezos very aptly said that in any job, no matter how much you love it, there's a certain amount of overhead, things that you don't like doing. So Monday through Friday, I'm doing my overhead. When I work on the weekends, with precious few exceptions, it's never overhead. It's writing, it's editing a story, it's looking at concept art, it's, doing things that have to be done for the business, but also in and of themselves, I find so energizing and exciting that it's arguably the best way that I could spend. That's why I do it during my selfish time. So my wife and I take selfish time. She draws. She's a world-class artist, absolutely breathtaking. And I will write or do something around the stories. And that to me is incredible. So it's a lot of hours for work, but like they say, if you love what you do, you'll never work a day in your life. So that's how I'm able to hit the kind of crazy numbers that I hit, or the number of books that I read. It's like, I love that. It lights me on fire. I'm excited to do it. I'm not trudging through it.
Entrepreneurship is one of the hardest things that you're ever going to do in your life. And it's totally worth it. It's totally worth it. Whether it actually works out or not, most entrepreneurs will fail. Something like 85% of businesses fail in the first 5 years. Most businesses won't work, but it's totally worth it. Why? Because you're showing yourself that you bet on yourself. You're showing yourself that you're following through and taking action on your ideas, that you're worthy. You're showing yourself that you're worthy. You're showing yourself that you believe in you. And if you keep doing that, you're gonna win. The path to living a happy life, a fulfilled life, a life that you're proud of, is one where you continue to show up for yourself. And the minute that you stop, when you stop showing up for yourself, when you just throw in the towel and say, this is over, I'm just gonna work for somebody else, I'm gonna help somebody else build their dreams instead of chasing down mine, that's when life starts to fall apart. That's the path down to unhappiness and depression. And it doesn't mean that everybody has to be an entrepreneur, but what you have to do is continue to bet on yourself. You have to continue to bet on your ideas. You have to continue to say, I came up with this good idea, and because I came up with it, therefore it's a worthy endeavor for me to chase it down. I got asked on my live stream yesterday, how do I know when to quit? Is quitting bad? Do I quit on something? How do I know when to quit? Some people say never give up, always keep going. And some people are the opposite. So what's the right advice? The right answer is, if you love it, you have to keep going. If you love it, you have to find a way to keep going. So for a lot of cases, that's what entrepreneurship is. You've got a dream, you've got a mission, you've got some goals that you genuinely love, that you really want to build, to create, to serve, to help people with. And it's that love that's going to keep you going. Because in the early days, it's going to suck. It's the chewing glass and eating to the abyss, right? You have that moment of high at the beginning of, I'm going to start this thing. Oh my God, this is so exciting. And then you land into the valley of no momentum, nothing working, no results, nobody praising you anymore. Nobody celebrating you for starting the business. Now you're in the actual running of it and you're not getting the results that you want. And you're trying to show how you're winning and post it on Instagram, but you're not, and you're not, and you feel like a fraud. And this is the life cycle that a lot of entrepreneurs go through. But if you love it, you have to keep going. You have to. You could be a lot more honest. You could be a lot more vulnerable. You could be a lot more authentic. You can understand that you don't have to do this all by yourself. This is my biggest problem when I started my company. I was failing. I was flat out failing. I was $300 a month, like failing. And I was too embarrassed and ashamed to tell my friends that I was failing. I wanted to look like I was doing well because I turned down the jobs that they all went and got, and they're all making high 5-figure, low 6-figure jobs out of university, and I'm making $300 a month. I was just embarrassed. I was just too embarrassed. And I made it harder on myself to be alone. You don't have to be alone. You can make it easier by just letting people in. When you're down in the dumps, being by yourself is usually the worst thing. If you can be around other people, especially people who support you, a lot of people will. Let's circle back to the idea that if you don't love it, you're going to regret it. Why do you have to keep going? Why do you have to keep going? Why is it so important if you love it? Because you will regret it. Because you will look back on this moment in your life and say, I should have done more. I could have done more. I regret not giving it one more week, one more month, one more year. I regret it. You will regret it. That's the only thing that saved my first business. I quit on my partner. I told him, I'm done. I need to feel like I'm a valuable human again. Nothing I'm doing is working, and I hate how this makes me feel as a person. Nothing against you or the business, just how I feel. I need to feel like I'm valuable again somehow. That was the conversation. And then the next day I woke up and I said, I can't quit because I'm going to regret this. I know I'm going to regret this. I'm going to be an old man at 40. I'm 41 now. I'm going to be an old man at 40 and regret that I wasted my life and I didn't do this thing. And that's the only thing that gave me the courage, the motivation, the energy to get back up and just keep going. You will regret this. If you love it and you stop now, you will regret this for your entire life. Now, on the flip side, I think there are many things that you should quit on sooner. The difference is if you don't love it, you need to quit on it. If you don't love it anymore, and maybe you never loved it in the first place, then you need to move on because you will never win doing work that you hate. The people who are at the top of their game, people that I've studied, how many successful people have I studied and profiled and showcased on all of these channels? How many? So many people, right? The one thing they all have in common is that they love what they do. They love the process. They love the work. They love the grind. It's not a grind for them because they're in it so much and they love it. So that's who you're going up against, right? And if you don't love it, you're always going to lose. No matter how smart you are, you're going to lose because you're going up against people who absolutely love the thing. And so that's what you need. You need to be loving your thing. And so if you're in it just as a strategy, you're going to lose. Move on immediately as soon as your heart's not into it. Either sell it, or if it's too new, then you just flat out move on. I think people stay in relationships for too long. I think people stay in businesses for too long because you're afraid of failure, because you're afraid of what it means if you quit on something and go to something else. You're afraid of what people are going to say. You're afraid of what the person looking back at you in the mirror is going to think if you quit. You're afraid of the uncertainty of where to go next because if this thing, at least I know what this thing is doing. I don't know what the future holds for me if I go somewhere else. A lot of people are handcuffed by having a little bit of money, not a lot, but enough to survive. And that then prevents them from taking the next jump, which they actually need to do because their heart's not in the thing. So many people start a business because they're just trying to make money. People ask me, what's the number one business to get into for this year to make a lot of money? That's the wrong question. You're asking that question, you're going to lose. You can't start with how to make money. You start with the thing that you love that brings value, and inside of that, you're making money. Making money is important, 100%. If you don't make money, you will not have a business. Making money has to be in your top 5 of priorities. But if you make it number 1, you're gonna lose because you're always gonna be chasing the next hot thing, never get good enough at anything to actually be the best in the world, which is actually how you start to make a lot of money. You need to be the best in the world at something. How do you get that? By loving the thing so much and by wanting to serve and help people get better at it too. That's how you win.
You know, I find if I'm stressed about something, it's usually because I'm not doing anything about it. And so if I'm stressed about something, I'm trying to figure out, why am I stressed? I'm listening to my body as a signal that something is awry. And then I find that the stress goes away the second I take the first step of identify the source of the stress. Why am I stressed about this? What's going on? And then, talk to somebody about it. Find allies. I would say that if you can find friends who are interested in similar things or want to help you solve a problem, problem solving is inspiring for me all by itself. As long as I have allies, there's nothing more fun than getting in a room with a group of inventors and saying, look, here's the problem. Let's invent a solution to it. And as soon as you start doing that, I find that it turns from something that might create stress into something that creates fun.
If you see self-improvements, not even just with cars, with your own body, when you go work out, Do you feel better when you come out of the gym all pumped up, or you feel better when you haven't worked out for a month?
Yeah.
Of course, when you go to the gym,
Yep.
you're building your, something happens when you see changes in your body with your assets, when you see even gaining a good friend. I have my down days, I'm sure you do too. We're all human,
Yep.
You could have all the money in the world, you're still gonna have a bad day, you know?
Absolutely.
You don't know what's gonna cause it, but you do. And for me, working out is great. I have a personal trainer 3 times a week. And then when I don't have my personal trainer, I just get out of bed and drop on the floor and do 20 push-ups, 30 push-ups. I do it until I can't do it anymore. And then I hit the shower and I feel great,
Yeah.
And it's, it's just keeping the fluids going, your mind fresh.
Yeah.
Because workout not just improves your physics, it also helps your mind.
Agreed.
And sometimes it helps your mentality more than your physique, but people don't realize it, It helps you focus.
Now I'm going through and teaching myself neural networks and, doing the same thing with machine learning and GANs and this and that, because AI is going to have more of an impact than the internet did. AI plus new types of chipsets plus 5G is going to change things far more than we've ever seen anything change. And understanding where and how to apply it is going to be critical, but just as important, knowing how to segregate and separate the right, is as important, because every email y'all are about to send me is going to say, I have this AI solution and we're using algorithms. Yeah, of course you are, right? And then what? What really makes you different? What really sets you apart? But if I didn't do that work, if I didn't sit down and do the AWS machine learning tutorials, if I didn't go on YouTube and take, the NYU Introduction to Neural Networks or whatever, I'm not going to know it, I'm not going to be able to apply it, and I'm not going to be able to be first. And that's fun. That's fun. Knowing I get to kick the ass of some 22-year-old NYU graduate, that's awesome,
Do it anyway is a mindset trick that you can use when you start to feel excuses rolling up. It works a lot like the 5-second rule. So you have said to yourself, okay, I'm going to talk to my boss today about that thing that I've been avoiding talking to them about. Or maybe you've said something like, I'm going to go to the gym today or tomorrow or whatever. And then the moment comes where you've got to have that conversation. Or the moment comes where it's time to pack up your bag and leave your desk and go to the gym. And what always happens? You don't feel like it. I bet there are plenty of you watching that have made a commitment that, I'm not going to have a drink tonight. And then guess what happens when you get home? You don't feel like not drinking. You feel like having a drink. And so here's what do it anyway has done for me. The idea that I just do it anyway has pushed me to realize and to recognize that there are a lot of moments where there are things in my life that I really want to do, I need to do, I should do, but when the moment comes, I don't feel like it. And so I pull out this idea of, you know what, I'm just going to do it anyway. It's raining outside. I said I would go for a short run. I don't feel like it. I'm going to do it anyway. It's 6 o'clock in the morning. I'm tired. It's cold. I laid out my yoga clothes, but now I don't feel like it. What do? I do it anyway. When you start to say to yourself, I'm going to do it anyway, what happens is something really cool. You acknowledge that there are feelings that you have that are trying to swoop in and hijack you. You acknowledge them and you basically say, guess what? I'm going to do it anyway.
How do you get to where you're at? How do you think the way you think? How can you self-actualize? How can you be positive? Can you identify a reason?
Well, for me, it's a little easier than maybe for some people because when you're down and out more than once, you don't know money, know nothing, and something good happens. Oh boy, this is great. But I was, with all due respect, I was born, I think, positive. My mom would always tell me, my God, be careful. Mom, I'm going to be just fine. I was kind of born positive. Then obviously when you're down, you go up, you get even more positive because you're so happy. And then when you have an abundance of something and you get to share it with people and you see a good end result, it's happy. If you do something for somebody else and ask absolutely nothing in return, it's the greatest high you'll ever get. Now, I went through the 60s, okay? It's the greatest high you'll ever get when you help somebody
that
and
with
you
all
ask nothing in
convincing.
return. Yes, absolutely nothing in return. It's higher than smoking anything.
Is that how you would describe a good giver?
Yeah, when you give to somebody or something or some environment, whether it's the environment for the planet or for people, and you ask nothing in return, you do it because it's the thing to do. Oh, do you get a good high? Everyone likes to be acknowledged, but do it sometime and don't tell anybody you did it. Like, there'll be times, Austin especially, I'll go downtown, and when I'm in LA, I'll do it because I was homeless here once, and I'll hand out $100 bills. I'll just go by to this free,
my
and I'll just throw
gosh.
that, and I'll just keep on walking. And one lady I gave a stack to. It was a $10,000 stack. She was just the kindest, sweetest lady, and I talked to her a little bit. She told me a little about her life, and I said, "Can I give you a couple of dollars?" "Oh, no. I found out a way to make it okay because I don't like to ask for anything." They said, "Okay," so I just held her hand, and I said, "Can I put a note in your pocket?" She goes, "Sure." So I just put a note in her pocket without realizing. Just pulled 10,000 out, put it in her pocket. There it was folded with a rubber band. And I said, "You are so blessed. Why don't you wait a few minutes before I read my note? Say a little prayer, then read the note, okay?" And I disappeared.
I write down my day. And what I do is I go back and study that day. Like sometimes I might get sick. I might be overtrained. I might gain a couple pounds here. I might feel whatever. It's like my accountability journal of what I'm doing with my life, physical, mental. I had an eating journal, all that. And it helps me go back to, once again, study. I'm a lab rat. And I study myself. And I'm like, when I'm feeling f***ed up, I go, okay, what did I do last week? And usually I can find out where I messed up last week, how much I'm traveling, how much I'm sleeping, how much I'm doing all this stuff. And through journaling, man, you can really figure out so much about where you're messing up in life and what you need to fix about yourself.
Taking constant inventory. Being honest about that.
And that's the thing about, you cannot put in there.
Yeah.
It's got to be a real journal about, hey, today I messed up here. Today I should have been a better person here, and not just saying it, but actually trying to fix it tomorrow.
What's the best advice that you've received?
Someone told me that what you delegate is 80% as good as you would have done it yourself. Let it go.
Oh, wow.
I took inventory of what am I good at, what am I not good at, what do I, enjoy and don't enjoy, and they're usually the same thing. Ironically, I was very clear in the first year I was not good at shipping and handling, and I wasn't good at, so many different things about managing the inventory, but I loved inventing the next idea. I loved the brand. I loved the way that I was communicating with consumers. So being able to free yourself up to do what you do best and let the people who do the other aspects do it.
What problems out there can feasibly be fixed, say, in our lifetimes?
Well, I think first of all, the world's actually pretty great right now. Arguably better than any point in history. And this is sometimes lost if you read the newspapers. They're like a magnification of all the world's problems. It's like, newspapers seem to be attempting to answer the question, what was the worst thing that happened on Earth today? And it's...
If it bleeds, it leads.
Yeah. And it's like, okay, and I think there is kind of an evolutionary reason for that, because it makes more sense to, like, you want to prioritize danger over reward, or because if you get eaten by the lion, it's game over. But if you forget where you left some snack, that's okay. So there's it's not quite the same in terms of the risk-reward balance, but we didn't evolve with newspapers and global media. So, like, our brain's sort of having a fear response to a bunch of dangers that are extremely unlikely to ever affect us.
I turned it around. I did my job in 4 hours, and I was on. There was a wall that separated production from the offices and the lunchroom. Because in production, there was, quality control. You couldn't go in there unless you had hairnets and, protective equipment. So what I did is I borrowed some protective equipment. I went in there and I started hanging out with the operators, the people that were running the lines. And I started taking their trash outside. And then if they wanted, this is cool. This is the truth. I don't know, people will like it. But if they wanted a cigarette break, to go outside and smoke. This is the 70s, right? Everybody smokes. So I would say, well, just show me what to do. You'll just be gone for 5 minutes. And they're like, I don't know. Like, oh, come on, I'll I'm a mechanic, you know, I really am, you know, and so they would teach me, you know, how to watch the line, and they would go outside, you know, and I'd do that for a couple of weeks. And so the other managers were telling my manager, like, hey, the guy on your crew that mops in the night, man, hey, I just want to thank you for letting him take my trash out. My guys helped him. And they were like, what? Who did that? You know, and he was like, okay. He was like, no one had ever done that. You know, you heard the old statement, that's not my job.
Oh,
well,
yes.
after he told me that, I never said that. I said, I'm employed here. That is my job. You know, that is my job. And little by little, I learned how to run the Dorito lines. You know, how to, and it is like being a pilot. It's not, you know, people say you just make chips. Oh, no, man. It's like you got to go to pilot school to learn how to make Doritos and potato chips and Fritos. Believe me, it takes a couple years to be a master.
What does max out really stand for you? And when did that moment happen where you knew that that was going to be part of your brand?
Yeah, my son's name's Max, so that helped. But maxed out to me means this, as you know, your obsessions become your possessions. Whatever you end up being obsessed with, you'll eventually possess. So if you're obsessed with what you're worried about, your fears, your problems, you're going to possess those. And so I became obsessed. The short version is that, and you don't know this, I don't talk about this on camera very much. When I was 30, my uncle died at 50 years old. And he was the guy in my family, we all have this, that you kind of resemble or remind everybody of.
Oh, right.
My dad's brother. He died at 50.
Sorry.
No, thank you. I appreciate that. It's a long time ago now. Yeah. And but he was was my godfather, and in my culture, that's a big deal.
Of course, mine as well.
Yeah, I know. And,
shout out Uncle Mike.
Yeah, mine was Uncle Mike. Wow. Whoa. Whoa, 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 whoa. It's got chills everywhere right there. Whoa, 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 whoa. 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 Man.
That's how the universe works, right?
Whew. Wow, okay. You got me right there. So mine was my Uncle Mike. Wow. And
oh man, that just touched me.
So mine was my Uncle Mike. And that blows my mind right there, brother. So I'm at his funeral. We're flying back. On the flight, there's this thing in your brain called the reticular activating system. It basically filters into your awareness what's important to you. That's why, like, if you buy a new car, all of a sudden you see that car everywhere on the freeway, 3 lanes over, on the other side, boom, another one. They were always there. Why do you see them now? It's filtered into your importance. And heart attacks were it. He had died of a heart attack. And so I'm on the airplane and I'm listening to music, and on the screen's the Oprah show, but it's in my awareness, and it's a heart on the screen. I'm like, unplug my headphones, plug it into the phone system, and it was about a new heart scan that was happening at Cedars-Sinai, where they could, like, it's common now, but they could non-invasively look at your heart and your arteries. Long story short, I hear it, and I told my wife, I said, schedule me for one of those exams. Right. She's like, it's expensive. I said, I don't care, schedule it. We call, it's a 9-month wait. I go, I need to get in. I keep calling the lady. Finally, she goes, there's a cancellation tomorrow at 2. I go, I'll be there. So I go down for the scan. And thank God this doctor understood influence and leverage. You do the scan, then you come back after lunch. I literally went, ate a burrito, came back. I wasn't in shape. I'm 30 years old. The doctor comes out and he goes, I'm looking for Edward Mylett. I go, it's Mylett, you know, and he goes, he knew. And he goes, whoa, I can't believe these arteries are in that young a body.
Wow.
You need to come back, son. Now my heart's racing. I'm like, what the hell's in this scan? We sit down. Instead of what a normal doctor would do, they just go, hey, here's the prescription, take Crestor, work out, eat good, bye. He understood reasons is what changes people's lives. Massive reasons, not discipline, reasons and habits, right? He goes, let me ask you a question. Your wife's beautiful. Do you have kids? I go, yeah. I go, I got a son, he's 1. He goes, that's great. Do you want to be there when he graduates high school? I went, what? He goes, do you want to be there when he graduates high school? I said, yeah. He goes, okay. Is she pregnant, huh? I go, yeah. What does she have? And I said, a girl. You get to a dad, this is what you say. He goes, would you like to walk that little girl down the aisle on her wedding day, son? I went, what? What is in this scan, dude? And he goes, I want to be very clear with you, young man. I remember this like yesterday. He goes, I want to be very clear with you, young man. If you continue down the road you're going, another man's going to live with your beautiful wife in your mansion, walk your son at graduation, and he's going to be arm in arm with your daughter on her wedding day, not you. You'll be long gone. Actually, as I tell you this right now, dude, right? Wow. And he goes, what I'm going to get you to do is I'm going to get you to max out your life and your fitness. And I went, give me it.
Yeah.
And he gave me exactly what I needed to do. And he said, if you do this, you'll walk her down the aisle, blah, blah, blah. From that day, when I get up like I did this morning and I'm tired and I was late last night and I don't want to go to the gym, I swear to you, brother, I swear to you, I go, Bella's wedding, get your ass up. And I go. I'm fit because I have massive reasons. That's why I'm fit. And that started the journey towards maxing out every area of my life. I'm like, if I can do this in my fitness, I can do this in business, I can do this in my spirituality and everything. I'm not gonna shortchange myself by pretty good. I'm gonna see what my real potential is, what my maximum capacity is every single day. Because at the end of my life, when I do die, I have this belief that when I'm done, the Lord's gonna go, well done, good and faithful servant. And by the way, here's the man you could have been. This is the man you were born to be. This is the man you were destined to be. This is where you could have gone, what you could have seen, the memories you could have had, the people you could have helped, the person you could have become. Right. Meet him. My obsession is that every day I'm chasing that dude, so that when I do die, we meet, we're identical twins. Because the bad end of a life, whether it would be at 30, 50, or 150, would be I meet that guy and we're total strangers. Yeah. So I'm obsessed with meeting that guy someday, and that's what maxing out means.
I've made myself, understand IT, information technology. And if you talk to any CEO of any company, they'll tell you that's the one department that you do not want to, because no matter who you bring in, everybody has their own way of doing it. And I've just still made myself understand technology, even though I'm not a millennial. I try to at least know a little bit about every single department, even if I don't know it a lot.
And so walk me through, you want to learn about IT, what do? You Googling it, or do you go sit down with the head of IT and say, teach me everything?
No, I want to know everything. I want to understand this, malware, how people are getting into all of our systems and hacking us. And
what's your process for learning though?
Just sitting down and say, you got to make me smarter on this. You got to help me through these steps because I don't get it. Don't go into too much minutia because you'll lose me because I'm not that smart, but you got to give me the steps of why this is happening or not happening. And that's something that everybody should do. You don't have to understand, that I'm going to go and be able to program something or write something, but we should all, if we're running a company, understand some portion of it. When I'm shooting $1 Billion Buyer, I know what all these different people do and exactly what they're doing and how important, each person is. And it's just trying to understand what you do, and it makes you appreciate that person and how smart they are at that job too, and how important they are to your company.
I was a DNF student. I sucked at school. I actually was so bad at school that I had my admin, my assistant, reach out to my high school and get a copy of my report card so I could put it on Instagram the other day, because people are confused what success looks like or how you get there. Doesn't mean that you should look at me and not do school. It means that you need to look at yourself and figure out who you are. What are you good at? What do you like? How are you gonna get to the place that you wanna get to? And so for me, I got 4 A's in high school my entire career, all in gym, right? I got a D in yearbook. And so to me, there's just 1,000 paths out there. And so for me, I'm curious about one by one, for the 30 people in this room, where's their mindset? Where are they at? Who are they listening to? What are they judging their self-worth and their ambition based on? How are they counting the points? Because when you're a youngster, you're looking at all sorts of different things. You're being affected by all sorts of different voices. And for me, the only thing that worked, even though I was getting D's and F's and all my friends' parents told me I was a loser, even though all my teachers told me I wasn't gonna be anything, even though I didn't have stuff, even though I just was in my own head. I knew exactly who I was. But the thing that I was willing to do was I was willing to work. And the thing that my parents taught me was not to dwell, not to cry about it. I didn't have shit. When I rolled up on my mom when I was 9, when Nintendo was popping, because when it first broke, I was like, Mom, I need Nintendo. She's like, good, go get it.
We were very interested in physical stores, and we haven't. I've been asked for years, we ever open physical stores? Literally 20 years I've been asked the question, and I always say yes, but only when we have a differentiated offering, something that's not me too. Because that space, physical stores, is so well served. If we offer a Me Too product offering, it's not going to work. And it's also just, we're not very good at that. Whenever we've tried dabbling in something that's a Me Too service, we tend to get beaten. It doesn't work. Our culture is much better at pioneering and inventing, and so we have to have something that's different. And that's what Amazon Go is. It's completely different. The Amazon bookstore, completely different. And we have ideas about how to merge Prime and Whole Foods to make that. Those are still rolling out. You haven't seen them yet. But to use Amazon Prime to make Whole Foods a very differentiated experience. And so what we're going to be able to do is take some of our resources, some of our technological know-how, and expand the Whole Foods mission. They have a great mission, which is to bring nourishing food to everybody, organic, nourishing food to everybody. And but we have a lot to bring to that table in terms of resources, but also in terms of operational excellence and in terms of technology know-how.
How you talk to the existing consumers are very different than how you talk to the future consumers, all with the same brand. So whenever you have a media budget, now you have to divvy it up between the old line traditional media and the new tools that are digital, social media. We have to figure out a allocation mechanism with uncertain returns on investment in the short term. So this is a long-term brand building, first point. Second is we have to figure out how to advertise differently, because you just can't take a TV commercial that was developed for X Factor and just plonk it on digital media and say, this is the new way we're going to reach you. You guys will reject it. So we have to talk to you completely differently. We almost have to let you interact with the brand as opposed to it being a one-way conversation. So what we're learning to do is hire new people, allow them to experiment, allow them to experiment in ways that says you don't have to adhere to the old rules that existed in PepsiCo, which is all difficult for us. As I said, when you have boomers and Gen Xers running the company and you actually think they're sort of cowboys because they want to do things that are so alien to what we were brought up with. Right. At the same time, we're allowing a lot of the young people to experiment.
I've noticed something in my life. The people that are really good want to work with the best people they can find. Hopefully people that are even better than them. That's my view of things, is if you work with people that aren't as good as you, then you become a country of midgets. If you work with people that are better than you, then you really grow.
The only thing I can control in my life are the things that I'm willing to take responsibility for. These gladiators that came here thousands of years ago and maybe lost their lives, if they took responsibility for the match, full responsibility, and I might be taking this too far right now, I don't know. I don't know what it was like to be a gladiator in 720, 740 AD, okay? I can't even imagine fighting in front of 50,000 people with the lions possibly coming out to eat me, okay? But I know this, you really got to get this point carried away. You got to get it like in your head. You're an executive, you're a business owner, you're a manager. You're trying to hire people. You're trying to hire people and you're like, oh, the people are bad. Oh, everybody's terrible. Everybody's bad. I can't find good people. Dude, take responsibility. We all have something to do with what's going on around us. You and I authorize others to drop the bomb. Look, I've been robbed twice in my life. 23 years old, I was almost killed. Guy came in my house, put a .45 caliber pistol in my face, hit me right here, then put 70 stitches in my head and face, robbed me. In New Orleans, Louisiana, I was robbed at a younger age. I caused both of those. I was the victim in both situations. On the police report, victim robbed by criminals. Truth is, I wasn't a victim. I created both of those. Wrong place, wrong time, wrong people. I had something to do with that. Everything that happens to you is because of you. Quit passing it off, right? It's gonna rain on me right now while I'm shooting this. Dude, that's my fault. I could have shot this thing yesterday when it was sunshine. Watch and read high performance people and you will see that they always take responsibility. When their life goes to garbage, it's when they quit taking responsibility. The greats in the world keep track of everything. When they're in the game, when they're the gladiator, when they're the ball player, when they're the executive of a big company, they're statistizing everything, okay? How many outbound, how many inbound? What's our closing ratio? What's our right ratio? Everything is measured. Measure your actions and measure your results. Those that don't and won't are irresponsible and they will cause you problems. I remember as a young salesperson, I was keeping a log, not on what I sold, but on what I said to people. I kept everything. How many people I talked to, how many people I waited on, how many people I wrote up, how many people I negotiated with, how many people I closed, how many people I talked to on the phone, and also what they said and what I said, what worked and what didn't work. I was taking responsibility. This is the only way you can take responsibility, by the way. You can't just say, oh, I'm responsible. You got to do something to follow up the responsibility. It's how I handle and learned and became a professional salesperson. I handle the future by being responsible for the present. You go in that gladiator. You go in there as a gladiator in that Coliseum, okay? And you don't figure out how you lost that last fight, you're gonna die in the next one. Take responsibility. Even if the other guy cheated, he surprised you, he shocked you, he pulled out some other weapon you didn't know about. Be prepared for the future by taking responsibility for the present. So be responsible, be the cause, not the effect. Be responsible. Even when you're not responsible, be responsible. Bad things happen to good people. Good things, by the way, happen to good people. And blame no one, be responsible. And remember this, you wanna be great, you wanna be super successful, take responsibility for everything, even the things that you could have no responsibility for.
This is where trainers mess people up. I've had trainers who totally just want to prove that you could never do what they do. And, and they have you paying.
I know what you mean.
Just to say like, oh, this
You're not
poor
as good
guy.
as me. Right.
And they go to blast you. Like they want you, unless you're in pain and you feel like you're sick and you're throwing up, they're like, yeah, that's a workout now. Yeah, look at you. Yeah, you hurt, you can't walk, great.
Yeah.
And the whole point is, what I tell people is treat the gym like a spa. The first time you ever go, just go in there and walk around. Touch the weights, get a drink of water, walk around, and then leave.
Right.
And I mean, literally do that for like a week, 2 weeks, until you just get to the habit of getting in that door. Because what's gonna happen is eventually you're gonna start lifting because you're there.
Yeah.
And you're gonna do something. And then you stop. Don't ever get to the point where you're like, I can't feel my arm. It doesn't work. I've been working, people they want my body and all this stuff, but I've been working out consistently since I was 14 years old.
Right.
And I'm 44. I've been 30 years of hardcore 2-hour workout. 30 years.
Yeah.
So it doesn't happen overnight. Nope. You just have to enjoy the process.
Totally.
Learn to enjoy it, because I'm sure there was a point where you started to enjoy losing 113 pounds.
Yep.
And that's the only way you're gonna keep going.
The tax department, which every country has taxes, they want to know what kind of income do you work for. So when you say to someone your age or a child to the parent, parent to the child, they say, let's go to school, get a job, they're working for this type of income. Earned income, as you can see from this diagram here, this is earned income here. And the first thing you pay is the highest taxes, because you worked for money.
Yes.
The government doesn't want you working for money. Yeah. They punish you for that. They want you to hire employees or invest. Okay, so earned income is what they work for. The second is portfolio income. It's also called capital gains. So if I buy a house for, let's say, $100,000, I sell it for $200,000, the $100,000 is capital gains. If I buy a stock for $10 and sell it for $20, the $10 is the capital gains. This is the second highest taxed. So the tax breaks that President Trump is working on today is primarily for these guys here. So they're doctors, lawyers, highly educated people, and they have stocks. Most of these guys don't have stocks of the working class. They have a 401k, but they don't get the break. But these guys, if you're active in stocks and that kind of stuff, or flipping houses, you get a break. But what the really rich work for is passive income. And passive income, for me, I have a business, whether I work or not, money comes in. And you've seen me, I'm not here, am I?
No, never.
Never. I've earned the right not to be here. Real estate, I have every year, my wife and I, Kim, we add more real estate. Also, we have commodity income from oil wells and things like this. Even the stock price of oil doesn't go up and down and all this, we still get this. But this is another type of income. This here, I won't get into, is called phantom income. It's taxes I don't pay, so this is a little bit beyond most people's minds. But let's say my tax bill is $100,000. By doing what the government wants here, the government may give me a $50,000 tax break. That means $50,000 in taxes I don't have to pay.
Wow.
So the $50,000, it didn't go to the government, it went back up here. So that's what financial education does. It teaches you about the financial statement, which is not taught in school. Again, they teach you FICO scores, which is really FIDO scores.
Exactly.
Was you told, little doggy?
Exactly.
Okay. And then for you at your age now, you want to know this. This is what they're teaching you to work for now. Ironically, when you save money and you have a 401k, this is the kind of income. So savings and 401ks are taxed the highest types of income. To me, it's stupid, but if you don't know any better, it's the saving money in, what do you call that, 401ks is good. Okay. In Canada, it's called RRSP. In Australia, it's called the superannuation. But this is what most people have, because they went to school, they got a job. And then this is what the rich really have. It's passive, and it's because I'm an active investor. I don't buy this because this is passive investors. I am active, and I'm professional in all of these areas. So I work for passive income, which means I'm not here. The check comes in, the checks come in every year, and you've seen Kim and I, and your mother now, she's working on here. And so your mother's income keeps going up, your father's income keeps going up, and they don't have a job.
My dad did a style of martial arts called Kyokushinkai. And I suppose as a little boy trying to get close to dad, I was like, well, if he's doing it, I'm going to join him. So my dad and I shared this incredible passion of martial arts and cars, right? So I kind of get started, with my father. Then he gets gunned down when I'm 13 years old. And I went through like a year of just nothing. I couldn't show up at the dojo. I didn't have it in me. And I did all the things we're talking about. The excuses. At the time, South Africa had a particularly high crime problem. And I was like, what's the point? Here's a first-degree black belt who gets attacked. He takes 9 bullets and he's dead anyway. Why am I going to this thing called the dojo, right? Again, excuse is valid. It really is. But there's no progress. So a year, nothing. And then I was like, I actually miss it. So I went back. It was interesting when I went back, it wasn't the same. I wasn't doing the kata to impress the senseis anymore. I was doing the kata because I wanted every single movement to be as close to flawless as I could get it. It changed my entire perspective. So, and one of the things that happened, you're going to love this. I'm literally getting chills thinking about it. One of the things that happened is time just expanded. So, because we have a very finite construct of time, I'm going to be at the dojo for an hour. But what happened was that hour felt like 5 hours, and sometimes 30 minutes felt like 5. All of a sudden, this fixed construct of time, it started to change because my relationship with what I was doing changed. So it wasn't just a punch. It wasn't just the kata. I wasn't just showing up for the emotion. I was embedded in every single part of the process. I was looking for growth, for progress, right? I have to tell you, that changed my entire life. So anytime I find myself stuck now, I recognize that often the reason I'm stuck is because I'm focusing on the output and I'm not focusing on my input, right? So output, I've got to raise 100 million rand for my business. Output, I've got to get 300% growth for, in customers. Output, I've got to get 25. Yeah, that's all output. But what you got to focus on is input. What are the things I've got to do, and how do I do those things intentionally, deliberately, and try to get better every single time? Every meeting, every impact conversation with one of my staff members, every engagement with a client or a potential client, every single one of those things, how do I focus on that moment? Because actually the output is a sum total of how those things come about. So when you when you are at the dojo and you are being graded and you are going through the process of trying to attain your black belt or your brown belt, that's what everybody sees as the output. But what actually went in was that malleable construct of time where you were trying to perfect every single movement.
Imagination is more powerful than knowledge when dealing with your own mind and the mind of others. If I said to any of you, come and stand on this chair, who would come and stand on this chair? I'll give you $100 to stand on this chair. Sure. If I said, well, now the chair is on top of that spire on the highest building in Tallinn, who's going to climb up and stand on it for $100? Who would do that? Some people would, because they've got a good imagination. They go, if I can stand on it there, I can stand. And most people go, no, I could fall. If we had a little tiny plank up here, you can walk the plank when it's on the floor. Put the plank between two high-rise buildings. Who's going to walk it? Not many people, because the imagination that you could fall and kill yourself is way more powerful than the knowledge that I did this on the ground. It's wide enough. Fear of flying. Knowledge says it's actually the safest place in the world. The most dangerous part of a flight is actually the drive to the airport. That's way more dangerous than being in the plane. Do you think the imagination cares? We'll go, I'm in a flying coffin. I'm hurtling through the air, and that guy looks like he's come straight out of ISIS, and he's in the bar. I think he's going to blow up the plane. And then you feel terrible. The other person's going, I'm watching a movie. I've always wanted to watch The Shape of Water. This is so great. Here's my time again to do nothing. So whatever you imagine will defeat logic, will defeat knowledge. And when dealing with children, people do logical stuff. Why are you so bad? Why can't you get it? What's going on? Why are you so naughty? And that doesn't work. I never say to kids, why are you bad? I go, what happened to you?
The first thing to realize is don't believe everything you see in movies and read in books. You know, there is no way both my wife, who worked for Steve directly, I worked for Steve, could do that for 10 years if there wasn't some amazing stuff that came out of it. It wasn't like we were getting whipped every day or anything. It had nothing to do with that. We were dedicated. We were passionate. He was passionate. He wanted the best for the company, for the products, for our customers. And when you're in that, there's a creative tension. And he emotionally would show that passion sometimes. Sometimes it was, oh my God, this is the best thing ever. You know, you hear about the negatives, but you don't hear about all the positives and all the great things he did for you. It did for the individual as well as the company and all that stuff. So it was always a balance. And those bad days were not very often, but they did happen because typically, yeah, you might have made a mistake. Don't do that again. Or we weren't thinking about it right, or somebody was falling down on the job, or whatever the case may be. That's when it came out, is when someone didn't show respect for the mission they were on. When you didn't show respect for the rest of your teammates and for the thing we're trying to build, that's when there was a problem. Not when we were falling, when we fail, when we tried really hard. And if we showed we tried really hard, then that was just an option, just like the iPod phone was a failure. No one got killed over that. It was more just okay, we tried our best, we move on. We tried our best, we move on. It's when you didn't do what was right and you failed because you didn't put your heart and soul into it and you let the team down. That's when there was a problem. And that's what people need to realize. It was very balanced, and he was very much human, passionate, and he was very helpful and all kinds of stuff. But yes, he did have his bad days, but not usually without reason.
In life, everything is about pivoting from one thing to another, stepping stones, right? So I started looking at office buildings out of a state, because California, it's like, I gotta expand my territory. Yeah. Right? So I started going on internet. Thank God to internet now. You can kind of get on there and search anything you want. So I started looking at Houston, 4th largest city in the nation, a lot of movement, a lot of liquidity in real estate, a lot of, product to cherry pick from. So I started, teaching myself, researching different zip codes, and I realized the area closer to airport is very active at businesses because a lot of people fly in for meetings. So I started buying smaller buildings, 3-4 story buildings. I bought 3 buildings. I think on my first visit, I flew there in 2004. I met with the broker. He showed me 5 buildings. I bought 3 of them on the spot. We went to his office, wrote the offer, and I flew back the same day I bought it for, I think, $9.7 million. I put $3 million down. But the nice thing is, you know, I had the experience already with negotiating and adding and flipping. So I already knew there's meat on the bone on these properties because I've already done it, you know, for 3-4 years prior. And what was nice is I bought the buildings, and then California had kind of plateaued 2004 to 2007. You didn't get a huge price appreciation, and people were selling in that time and doing 1031 exchange. Where they want to take their money?
Yeah.
Arizona and Houston, Miami, New York. So Houston was one of the cities where I got a lot of California money moving into it, and I was ahead of the curve.
Yeah.
So
you saw the trend.
Yeah. So by 2007, I had $130 million worth of real estate, all in Houston, mostly all of it in Houston. And I sold in 2007. Most of them California buyers.
I'll ask you a very simple question. Why does your organization exist? We don't need you. Clearly there's plenty of competition. Clearly people have plenty of choices. Even the things that you may specialize in, there are others that do a reasonably good job. They might even be better than you in some areas. So why do you exist? Providing education is table stakes. Everybody here does that. You can't rely on that. That's why the industry exists, not why your organization exists. That's like when I talk to healthcare companies and say, why does your organization exist? And they say, to help people be more healthy. Like, no kidding, thank you. But I know that the culture of one organization is different than the culture of another organization. There are cultural norms that wrap around the sense of purpose, cause, or belief. Great organizations understand their just cause, a cause so just that people would be willing to sacrifice to see the advancement of that cause. Sacrifice comes in many forms. It might mean working longer hours, giving you my best ideas, turning down a better job that offers me more money to stay here because I believe in what you're doing and I want to see that advanced. One of my favorite examples of a just cause is the Declaration of Independence. Our founding fathers declared, literally wrote down, they declared why we needed our own country. All men are created equal, endowed with these unalienable rights, amongst which include life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. They were never against Britain. The whole point is not to be against something, but to stand for something. Britain was simply standing in the way of them advancing their cause. And though they won independence, there are always finite games within the infinite game. Though they won independence, that didn't mean that they had now provided all men are equal. Now the real heavy lifting began. Now let's be crystal clear. When they said all men are equal, what they meant was white Protestant men. Let's be crystal clear. But even early on, during the Revolutionary War, George Washington understood how limiting that was, and he realized that they had to have a broader definition. So he included Catholics. He banned any organizing against Catholics in his armies, and he would regularly attend Mass to send the right message. Sometime later, we abolished slavery and the 14th Amendment. Sometime later, we had women's suffrage. Sometime later, we had Civil Rights Act. Sometime later, we implement gay rights. And you can see that we are striving to provide this thing called all men are equal, all people are equal. And though we will never actually get there, we will die trying. And the obstacles may always be different. And what a just cause is, it is a vision of the future that does not yet exist, and you will commit all of your energies to advance that vision of the world that you have. And the people you want to attract, both those who work there, those who teach there, and both those who come to learn there, believe in your vision of the future. So much so that they may turn down a better offer from someone else because they want to be around people who are committed to building this world that does not yet exist. And every single one of these organizations that you run and represent can have different visions or overlapping visions of the world. But you must be clear what your just cause is, what you stand for. Otherwise, the only thing I have to judge you on is superficial things. It's like dating, right? It's like dating. If somebody tells me what they stand for, who they are, they're talking about their character. And those are the people we want to spend the rest of our lives with. If we do not have any sense of who they are, what they stand for, what their purpose, what their cause, what their beliefs are, what their values are, The only thing we have to judge them on is how much money they make and how good looking they are.
Many ideas that people have are never actually acted on. When you first came up with the idea for Tom's, was this a big serendipitous moment for you? What was it like?
You know, it's funny. I get that question a lot, and people say, "Did your life change when you thought of Tom's, or when you had the idea?" And is kind of romantic or noble as it would be to say yes. The truth is no. It was just an idea. I mean, I was running my other business at the time, and I had this idea: if I sell a pair of shoes, I can give a pair away, and it was just an idea. But when it became much more than an idea, and when my life really did change, was when I went on that first shoe drop. I took my parents, who had never left the United States before. I took my brother and sister. I took, my intern, Jonathan, some of my friends, and we went down there, 16 people who really didn't know each other very well. And we just got on our hands and knees and started putting shoes on kids' feet. And we didn't know what we were doing. I mean, we had the shoes made and we knew where the areas that kids needed them. But it was an unbelievable experience to see that just 6 months before that, it was just an idea. And this idea had got the attention of enough people to buy 10,000 pairs of shoes so that we were allowed to go there and give them away. And I'll never forget this one moment, because it really was life-changing for me. We were leaving a village, and I was walking away, and this woman came up, and she was crying, and she was running after me, and she was speaking in Spanish, and my Spanish isn't very good, so I went and got my partner, Alejo, and he's Argentine. I said, Alejo, ask her, this woman, what's wrong? And she had these 3 boys with her, and they all had brand new Tom shoes on. And he said, in Spanish to her, and when she responded, she started to smile. And he was smiling as he was listening to her. So before he even told me the translation, I knew she wasn't crying because she was sad, she was crying because she was happy. But what she told Alejo and what he told me just blew me away. She explained that her 3 sons had been sharing a single pair of shoes for the past year. And what that meant was her oldest son would go to school on Monday, he would come home, give his shoes to his brother, and have to wait until Thursday to go to school again.
Wow.
I mean, can you imagine? Like, I don't have kids, but I'm sure a lot of people in this room do. I mean, can you imagine if that was the case with your family, that your children had to wait a couple days to go to school because of a pair of shoes? And I had no idea, even when we started Tom's, that it was that much needed. But when that lady told Alejo and he told me, and we got very emotional and started crying, I mean, it was like this really amazing moment. But that's when I knew that, this is what I wanted to do with my life.
Going back to your book, I think that one thing that's really, really interesting about it is the way that you structure it around, 80% of the book is the excuses that you literally tackle them one by one, which I thought was really smart, and then skill acquisition.
Yeah.
So why that structure? Why excuses and skills?
Because the excuses are just what I hear all day from women in DMs and emails, standing in line at a book signing. It's all the reasons why they can't do what they want to do. And it makes my head explode, because it's like, what? Like, you're not, it drives me crazy. So I thought it's well and good for us to talk about the things that you need to do to achieve this stuff. But none of this matters if you don't have this foundational presence of mind to get out of your own way and to stop using that as a crutch for why you can't do what you want to do. If I get flack for anything in this space, it's the idea that I tell women that anybody can accomplish anything. And I really believe that to the marrow of my bones, because there is no reason that I should have the life that I have, the business I've built, the being on stage. I shouldn't have any of this. This is working every single day for the last 15 years to achieve the thing that I want to achieve. You had said something recently, or maybe it was on your Instagram, where someone said, how do I become a speaker? And you were like, speak everywhere. Everyone that go everywhere. People are like, oh, I would love to be a speaker, but I can never talk like you. And I'm like, I spoke at old folks' homes. I spoke, because they can't run away, by the way, if anyone needs this tip. The people laugh, I'm like, no, it was for real. MOPS groups, which is mothers of preschoolers, they exist all over the country. I'd speak at the opening of an envelope, and I was horrible. My first speeches, it was this. Maybe somebody, it was and it's so embarrassing, and your hands are shaking, and I had note cards, and I keep the videos on YouTube because I want people to see the progression of what a decade looks like. I've done it so much. I mean, you need me to do a keynote right now, I got you, I can make it up. But it didn't start that way. It was so many years and so much effort, and the problem is, people don't, they're like, well, I can't because, or here's the reason why. And I'm like, yeah, me too. I had all those excuses. And it didn't mean that making the decision to move forward, suddenly it got easier. If anything, making the decision to move forward is harder. Like, because now, John Maxwell said this to me the other day. He's like, which is the most name-droppy thing, but I was interviewing him on the podcast. We're not like, having a slumber party. But he said, movement causes friction, always. And so just because you make the decision to move forward doesn't mean it, now we're doing it. No, now you've got all kinds of other problems. So excuses were really important for me to tackle, just because I think, love my girls, but women especially, like, we need to call BS. And you need to have someone get in your face and say, like, with all the love in my heart, this is not real. This is something that you've decided to cling to because it justifies why you're still in the same place.
Because you made it this far in a video, I want to celebrate you. Most people start and don't finish. Most people never actually follow through. Most people say they want something, but they don't ever do the work to actually get it. But you're different. You are special. Believe Nation, you made it here all the way to the end, and I love you. So as a special celebration, if you put a hashtag Believe down in the comments below on this video, I will showcase you and celebrate you somewhere on the screen in a future video, because you are awesome. If you want 7 more rich people habits to try, check the video right there next to me. I think you'll love it. Continue to believe, and I'll see you there.
You absolutely must, if you want to be legendary in your marketplace, you absolutely have to do this. Schedule 60 minutes a day for your learning. It could be listening to audiobooks,